Here we go. So exciting. We're here. We're here to do the live. I always feel a little bit like, I don't know, with these live broadcasts, but I think it's working. So I'm excited. And Ryan and I are here. We've done this the last couple of months, just a little informal live stream to talk about what's been going on and just to have fun. And so thanks, Ryan, for joining me to do this, and hope you all are having a really good Saturday. And so how are you doing, Ryan?
Oh, well, I'm just doing great. I don't know about you, but this past month of August it's been a really good month. I've had a lot of crappy months this year. I'm sure pretty much everybody has.
Yeah.
So I'm preaching to the choir, but I think this month of August specifically was just like, it was a banner month for me. It was like I had planted some seeds a very long time ago, and after just like getting rained on and pelted by hail and sleet and snow and just every
2020
and every disaster that could happen, the seed has finally come to bear. And it's just been like, I've just spent several days just like collecting and collecting and collecting, and it's far more bountiful than I could have ever imagined. So I've been doing pretty well.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, it's been really good for me as well, and to see things starting to kind of normalize, at least where I'm at, has been nice. And they're still not at church, which I will look forward to. They're starting every 6 weeks doing small groups. So I might go to the next one that's on the the 18th or something like that. My next opportunity is on it's actually I think my next opportunity is on the 20th to go to church. And so I'll probably do that. But that's still kind of the big hurdle as far as my normal life to getting back to normal would be once we start going back to church. But there's been a lot that has gotten back to normal, which I appreciate, with being able to go back to the movies and especially, getting to see a movie like TENET, even though I was disappointed in it. I still was a great experience to get back in the IMAX and get back to the theater, and New Mutants as well. To get to go back to a blockbuster movie like that was really cool.
Yeah, and minus the sound issues, which I think my ears are still ringing a bit off and on. It's still one of my favorite theater experiences that I've had all year, because I got to take 3 or 4 of my best friends with me, because I was talking to them and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to be seeing Tenet on Monday," and they're like, "Can we go with you?" And I'm like, "Sure, it's going to be a confusing as hell Nolan movie, but if you want to go with me, like, it's your funeral." And quality of the movie aside, it was still really nice, because we ended up going to like the really late showing, and so the theater was just closing up. They had taken out all the popcorn and everything, and so we got this like Mongo like size bag of popcorn, like in the yellow bag. It was going to be thrown away, but it was still hot enough to where it was tasty. But it was just a great experience. And I got to see the Dune teaser, which, Rachel, I'm had to keep you from bouncing off the walls because you're so excited for that movie.
Yeah, that's right.
But I personally loved it, and I'm just looking at the release calendar for the rest of the year. I may be getting ahead of myself, but I'm looking forward to more than a few movies for the remainder of the year. There's Wonder Woman, there's Dune, maybe not for you, but for me at least. There's No Time to Die, which is Daniel Craig's final Bond, and hopefully he goes out with a bang and not a whimper. So there's quite a few movies that I'm looking forward to seeing in theaters now that they're open. Like, thank God.
Yeah, so I actually quite enjoyed the little trailer to Dune. I'm still very skeptical because of how much I dislike the source material, but I thought it was a really well done if you can have a good trailer to a trailer, it was really well done. So it definitely is encouraging, but better than I could have expected. And
And
so I was it was actually probably one of my favorite things about the screening was the trailer to Dune.
yeah, well, one of the faces on my current Mount Rushmore of modern film directors is Denis Villeneuve. I've never seen a bad movie from him, whether it's Prisoners or Sicario or Blade Runner 2049 or Arrival, which in my opinion is the best out of all of those. He has just been on fire as of late. And when I heard about he was directing Dune, I was just saying, that's a perfect choice. So here's to
Yeah.
hoping that he can shoulder the weight. Like, he certainly has the cast for it. Like, Josh Brolin's in there, Dave Bautista's in there, Drax and Thanos in the same movie, and now the roles are reversed. That's going to be just delightful. Timothy Chalamet is in there. I'm sure I'm butchering that name. Let's see who else. I think Oscar Isaac is in there somewhere. So it's a pretty stacked cast, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think people just need to be aware of what Dune is, and not and have proper expectations. If you're expecting Lord of the Rings, you're going to be disappointed. It is not Lord of the Rings. That is not what this book is, unless they are completely unfaithful to it. It's not. It's not Star Wars. It's a little closer to Star Wars than to Lord of the Rings, but it's really its own thing, and it's more the closest I can think to compare it to is something like Phantom Menace, just as far as the way it involves sort of philosophy and politics. So yeah, I really disliked the book. So let's hope they can make it much better than the book. But yeah, you can't deny that the cast, the director is the perfect fit. There's nobody better that you could get. And they got Hans Zimmer doing the music. Is Roger Deakins doing that? Do you know?
I'll check on IMDb.
Yeah, check cinematography. But our friend Micah is in the chat, so that's very exciting.
Shout out to the boy Micah.
Yes. So yeah, we're just kind of casual, we're just talking, and we're talking about some of the movies that we've seen. And yeah, it's been kind of fun. I've been able to watch a bunch of indies lately because I got 3 movies. I should have done more, but I ran out of time. Part of Fantasia Film Festival that they're doing the virtual event. And I watched Savage State, which had a lot of good things, but the pacing was extremely slow and the characters are very unlikable. So it wasn't my favorite. There was this interesting one called Lapsus about this dystopian sort of sci-fi whatever story with this guy, and he's trying to help his brother who needs medical care, and so he starts working for this corporation where he's laying down cable. And there's like this whole sort of economy and sort of separate world involving this company and laying down the cable. And as he gets sort of involved, it becomes more involved. The ending kind of threw me off, but it was pretty interesting. So I also I saw it was part of Fantasia Fest. I saw You Cannot Kill David Arquette, which I think you have got to see.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but amazing things about that. By the way, cinematographer on Dune is a man named Greg Fraser, and I hope I got that name right. But he's the cinematographer for Rogue One and Zero Dark 30 and several, if not all of the he was the cinematographer on all of the episodes of season 1 of The Mandalorian. One of my favorite parts of The Mandalorian was the cinematography. So they've got a good guy behind the camera. But
yeah.
Going back to You Cannot Kill David Arquette. I'm a big wrestling fan.
Yes, that's why you got to see it.
And I've heard nothing but amazing things about the documentary, because for those of you who are not too familiar with the world of wrestling, David Arquette is like, for a long time was like, he had the scarlet letter about him. Like, he was like he was just like public enemy number one for a lot of reasons.
Mhm.
And just watching the trailer, it was like, all right, like he had a self-aware moment and he's like, okay, I've done a bad thing to a business that I love, so now I'm going to put myself through literal hell to try and repay that.
Mhm.
And there's a part in there about the death match between him and Nick Gage. I'm not sure if it's covered in the documentary, but like I watched that match and it was just like, this is Deputy Dewey from Scream, and this is happening to him in our lifetimes. And it's so bizarre, but now it's like I have to go out of my way to watch it.
Yeah,
'Cause
you
I've heard
really
nothing
do.
but amazing things.
I kept thinking of you the whole time, and I'm like, "Oh, Ryan's gonna love this movie." And Ren's here in the chat, and he says, "I came in just in time for some wrestling talk." Woo.
Shout out to you, Ren.
Yes, because so yeah, You Cannot Kill David Arquette. Really interesting. I love these kind of character documentaries where you get to learn. I love 30 for 30s, the ESPNs that they do, and this was just really interesting, fascinating, and kind of sad at times. And they show this picture of him at a certain point where he was like taken seriously and like in there with Leonardo DiCaprio and people like that, and then his career just took a turn, and then the what happened with this whole World Wrestling Championship thing. And so it's a pretty good movie, and I think especially if you like wrestling, I think you'll especially like it. So that was an interesting indie that I got to see. I also saw Words on Bathroom Walls, and I'm really excited about it because the movie, I enjoyed it a lot. It's not, the ending is a little too tidy. I don't know what the book ending is, but Charlie Plummer, he is just a really great talent. I would say if somebody was going to ask me who's the next Leonardo DiCaprio, who's the next Jake Gyllenhaal, the next person who I think's really going to blow up, I think Charlie Plummer is it. He is so good. And I loved Lean on Pete from a couple of years ago, I think 2018. I loved that movie. His performance was incredible. And then he's just made really interesting choices. And he's in this, and he plays a young man who gets schizophrenia. And it's about how he learns to kind of deal with it. And it was really, I had a lot of really good things about it. And I was really excited because I wrote my review and I said I would be very curious to know from somebody with schizophrenia how they feel about it, like how they feel about the portrayal. And was really excited because somebody read my review and responded, and with schizophrenia, and said they'd like to come on and talk about it. And so I'm going to have them on. We're doing an interview on Wednesday with doing an interview on Wednesday with one of my readers named Zach, and we're going to talk about it and how the movie captured his captured schizophrenia in that experience. And I thought that was so cool that he responded to my review and they wanted to come and talk about it.
Let's raise the roof for Rachel.
Yeah, it made me feel really good.
Yeah, and when I heard the name Charlie Plummer, I said to myself, where have I heard this name before? And I just looked him up. He's in two movies that I've seen. The first is All the Money in the World, which is a completely forgettable movie from Ridley Scott, except for one thing. It was supposed to star Kevin Spacey, but then everything with him happened, and he had to be replaced by Christopher Plummer, and that whole fiasco with the reshoots.
Yeah.
And in that movie, Charlie Plummer was John Paul Getty III.
Right.
And he was in another movie that same year called The Dinner, a movie that I have a palpable hatred that has kept me going the last 3 years. It's one of my most viewed videos on the channel, and I have no idea why. It's a completely like blink and you miss it movie, but I watched it just for the sake of like, what do people see in it? And it was like, oh, it was me really mad at a random movie that I just decided to see because Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was sold out. So there that is. But I'm interested to see Words on Bathroom Walls now because my experiences with Charlie Plummer have been mediocre to negative, and you've
Oh.
pumped him up so much. Now I got to see it for myself.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that he was good in All the Money in the World. Yeah, the movie's not the best, but I thought he did a good job with that role. And then like I just love Lean on Pete so much. I think that movie is so beautiful. And Andrew Hay, the director, he is just such a wonderful director. He has a really great way of kind of capturing humanity, and his movies feel very authentic to me. And he did 45 Years, which is a really beautiful movie that I also really loved. He did Weekend. And I think his movies just capture the human experience of, and just feel very authentic and real. Like people, these people, people like them. And for Lean on Pete, he basically is, he's got this horse and he's going across the country to get to find his aunt, and you get this whole sort of picture of America in 2017, 2018, and I just thought it was such a beautiful film, and I loved his performance. And let's see. Ren says here, he says, Ryan, I have the same experience as you with a random movie. I was just really angry at because it was so awful and it got lots of views. It's called Urge. Have either of you seen it? No, I have never heard of Urge.
I have never heard of it, but now I am morbidly curious because it's like it sounds so it sounds really weird. Now I kind of have to see it just to see what made Ren so mad.
What is this? Pierce Brosnan, Justin Chatwin, Ashley Greene.
Justin Chatwin in a movie? That's a sign that your movie's downhill, because he was Goku in the abomination known as Dragon Ball Evolution, which I have precisely seen 3 episodes of Dragon Ball, both regular and Dragon Ball Z. And when I watched that movie, I was like, I am so sorry for Dragon Ball fans, because that's just like, it's like the Gem and the Holograms movie. I've never seen an episode of Gem, but I can hear like the fans just crying out in just the agony, and like pulling a Marlon Brando from Apocalypse Now. The horror. The horror.
As a Gems fan, I guess that's exactly right.
And that movie was produced by Blumhouse, believe it or not. And I was just randomly looking up at like, all right, what has Blumhouse done other than horror movies? They produced Gem and the Holograms. Well, it technically is a horror movie, so, makes all the sense of the world to me.
Yeah, I know it is kind of random sometimes on YouTube, the videos that will light up. And I mean, I was surprised at first that the Barbie movie reviews typically did so well, and I mean, I really enjoy the Barbie movie, so maybe I shouldn't be surprised, but I just didn't think that they would do that well, and they have almost always done well. And also, I have like on my Son of Bigfoot review, I have like 10,000 views. It's crazy. It's like really high. And I'm like, I didn't even think anybody even saw that movie, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a hidden gem. If it ever comes up on any of the streaming services, I think I'll mention it in our podcast. But you never know what's gonna take off. It's very. I always feel like this whole YouTube thing is kind of a crapshoot. You just you never know.
Yeah, and every time I see your channel, I see your trailer reaction to Your Name, and that got like 10,000 views too, which I'm sure made you the happiest.
That's for Weathering with You, but yeah, absolutely, that made me so happy. And the fact they didn't copyright claim it, which I'm still shocked at, because anime is usually really bad about that.
That's why That's why I stopped doing trailer reactions on my channel, because each and every one of them are now claimed. Like one of them got acclaimed like 2 or 3 days ago, and
Mm.
that was one from like 2017. So
Yeah.
it's like just when you think you're safe.
Mm. Yeah, I know. It's frustrating. It's like it's a piece of marketing. It's not even the film. Give me a break. But anyway, I also saw the personal history of David Copperfield, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was quirky and weird and funny. And you take this story, this old story, and you add a certain. It almost felt like a Wes Anderson movie in a way to me, in this sort of style and type of humor that they did. And Dev Patel, he's always been a favorite of mine since Slumdog Millionaire. He's in it. He was great. It's got a great supporting cast with Tilda Swinton, and it's got Peter Capaldi from Doctor Who. He's in there. He's fun. It has Hugh Laurie from House. He's great. I really enjoyed it. One of my favorites of the year. And I'm trying to think of other. I enjoyed the new version of Secret Garden. They definitely make it more of a fantasy story than some of the other versions. But I liked it. I thought it was good. Like the garden has kind of magic as opposed to just being a beautiful garden. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of Alfonso Cuarón's The Little Princess, which I love. It's not quite on that level, but just in the sense of sort of instilling sort of storytelling, and particularly in India. It starts out in India, just like The Little Princess does. But yeah, so that's definitely, I think, worth checking out. Colin Firth isn't in it very much. I don't think they had him for very long. So his character's kind of reduced in impact. But he's still good, but he's just not in it that often. I don't know. What about you? What's some fun stuff that you've been watching? I'm probably more for AFI.
Yeah, I on the AFI's list, I am currently up to. Let me pull up the list. I'm Midnight Cowboy. That's the most recent one that I watched. But I also watched Best Years of Our Lives, which was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Treasure of the Sierra Madre, which was great as well. Dr. Strangelove, which the first half I was like, okay, I'm starting to not get this, but then it hits a certain point and I started laughing my head off. Watched The Sound of Music, which is one of my all-time favorites. I've seen it 900 something times and I love it every single time. The original King Kong, which is another one of my favorites. It's so revolutionary and so ahead of its time. Willis O'Brien, the special effects supervisor of that movie, pretty much invented the special effects industry and inspired guys like Steven Spielberg and Peter Jackson and just too many other names to mention. Watched Bonnie and Clyde with Warren Buffett, or not Warren Buffett, not the entrepreneur, Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway. And at first I was like, okay, this is good, but I'm not sure. And then it hit a certain point and I loved it. And then Midnight Cowboy, which is strange because this was the only X-rated movie to win Best Picture at the Academy Awards. And after watched it, I'm like, this isn't even close to being X-rated. Like, this is barely a PG-13. But
that's interesting.
But from what research I did do, censors were thinking that the movie implied that Jon Voight and Dustin Hoffman were having a homosexual relationship. And I guess that was just too much for the censors of 1969 to handle. Like, even the implication of something like that was just a does not compute moment, which is just really stupid nowadays. But I mean, it is.
I've never seen it because I was turned off by that. So that's interesting to hear.
Yeah, but it was still really good. And if you only know, I only knew Jon Voight for like the National Treasure movies and maybe a few others. But in this, he's actually really good. And so is Dustin Hoffman as well, because my only exposure to Dustin Hoffman in this, or at least for the AFI project, was for The Graduate, and I was not a big fan of The Graduate. And he is far more likable in Midnight Cowboy than in The Graduate by a country mile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. That's one I haven't seen, but yeah, you named some really good ones. Best Years of Our Lives. Talk about a movie that holds up. It feels like it could have been made now, I think. I mean, the performances are just so raw, and I think the writing is so raw, and there's nothing about it that feels 1950s to me. Everything feels like there's nothing Leave It to Beaver at all about it.
Yeah, and Harold Russell, who legitimately had his hands destroyed in a training exercise on June 6, 1944, which was also happened to be D-Day,
Mm-hmm.
he legitimately had like 2 hooks for hands. Like, he didn't have hands at all.
Mm-hmm.
And he won 2 Oscars. He won the Best Supporting Actor Oscar, and he won a Special Achievement Oscar for I can't remember the formal title, but it was for like disabled persons or special performance. It was like what Walt Disney got when he made Snow White in 1937. It was a Special Achievement Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
And it was incredibly well deserved,
Yeah.
because Harold Russell and Friedrich March were my favorite parts of the movie. And Friedrich March became a 2-time Oscar winner because of Best Years of Our Lives. The first was when he played Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in the original Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde
Mm-hmm.
from 1937. So he was pulling the Daniel Day-Lewis before Daniel Day-Lewis.
Nice. Yeah, it's such a good movie. And then also you had Treasure of Sarah Madres, which I think is very similar to The Reverend, but I think much better.
Yeah, it's like watching this for the first time, I was just like, this is like a Rosetta Stone for so many movies that I've seen, like Revenant. And there was a scene that was literally copied and pasted in Breaking Bad. It was like season 4, episode 5. Don't quote me on that, but Vince Gilligan, the show's creator, said in an interview that this is one of his favorite movies, and he lifted a scene from the movie and just replaced it with Heisenberg, Gus Fring, and Mike Ehrmantraut. But it's one of those movies where it's like you can see the inspirations of other smaller movies from Treasure on the Sierra Madre.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Very true. Well, that sounds amazing. I can't wait to hear what you think. We had from Ren. He said, Personal History was the movie that opened at the London Film Festival last year. Felt exactly the same way as you, Rachel, about it. Feeling very Wes Anderson. Never got a release in the UK due to the ongoing global. Yeah, it's a really fun movie. I think people, as soon as it comes to streaming, right now it's just in the theater. People should check it out. And I just love Dev Patel. He is so good, in my opinion. And then we have a question from Jara Wallstar. She says, if Disney ever does 2D animation again, what would you want to see from them?
Do you want me to go first, Rachel? I think.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, what would I like to see them do? That's a good one. I heard once upon a time, and I can't remember who said this on Twitter, but it was a tweet that said, you know what, I'd like to see a one-shot animated movie, because 1917 was popular.
Uh-huh.
And that always just stuck with me up here. And I was like, if anyone could do a one-shot animated movie, it would probably have to be Disney. So
yeah,
they can fill in the rest of the content blanks from there. But if they could pull off a one-shot, or made to look like one-shot animated movie, like that would just make my day.
Yeah. I mean, that would be really interesting. I would definitely be curious about that. I think if they were going to ask me, what would you do? What should we do? If they were asking me for advice, I think that I would just absolutely love to see a true Disney fairy tale in 2D animation. I think I would die. I would be so happy. And I think the the one, if you look at, they've done most of the sort of the big fairy tales. So I think the one that I might do is there's a pretty good one with Barbie and the 12 Dancing Princesses. I think that one, that story could be a good one. And it would be like marketing genius, because then you have 12 princesses basically that you can market. But I also think that Rumpelstiltskin would be really fun. The only challenge behind Rumpelstiltskin is that in the narrative, basically the king says to her, you make this straw turn into gold, and if you don't, I'm gonna kill you, but if you do, I'll marry you. And how do you make that modern and make it work? I don't know. Like, make it work for a modern audience. But I especially with Once Upon a Time and Rumpelstiltskin and how fun that character is, and I think could be, if there's a way to kind of get over that and figure it out, then I think that would be really fun to do Rumpelstiltskin.
I just had an idea of if they do like a 2D animated version of like the Nutcracker suite, but then I remembered, oh, Disney's already tried doing a Nutcracker or the Chronicles of Nutcracker, and it was terrible. So maybe they shouldn't going back to the Nutcracker well.
Yeah, just something about Nutcracker is just hard to put into modern. I don't know, just hard to apply it. There's been so many bad versions of Nutcracker. Although, if you check out Obscure Animation, Stanford and I talked about one that's a short that's 28 minutes from Russia, a Nutcracker that's actually quite good. So that's the one I would recommend going with if you're looking for a Nutcracker telling. That's the best one.
In Russia, Nutcracker eats you.
So yes, then we had we talked about The One and Only Ivan, and we talked about Love Guaranteed on our show. So you want to check that out. Then you got to see a couple movies at the theater. You've seen TENET.
Yeah.
TENET, and then what are the other two you saw?
New Mutants and Unhinged.
Oh, right, yeah. So, what did you think of New Mutants and Unhinged?
Well, first, I'll talk about New Mutants first. It was okay. Mm-hmm. Like it's there. It exists. Like yeah. I think it was Scott Mendelson over at Forbes who said like this was the worst X-Men movie ever made, and I have a lot of respect for Scott. I read his stuff all the time. Like, he is very good at what he does. But Scott, my friend, X-Men Origins Wolverine also exists on this planet. This is the same movie that cast a member of the Black Eyed Peas as a mutant, because I guess Adam Levine was already booked for that particular shoot. And someone had the good sense to put a mouth, or do this, to Deadpool. They decided not to give Deadpool a mouth. And I'm not the biggest Deadpool fan, but you don't not give Deadpool a mouth. Like, it's ridiculous. But tangents to one side. This is definitely in like the middle of the pack for the X-Men movies, at least for me. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed Blue Hunt, who was the main girl. I thought she was really good. Charlie Hunnam, I think is his name. He was my favorite part of the movie, and I said it, and I was thinking to myself the entire time, if they made the entire movie about this guy, I would watch like 3 or 4 with him in it, because he was awesome. Mm-hmm. And just, I thought the screenwriters and the director they were going on like this like weird movie binge where they saw Home Alone, The Breakfast Club, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and the first X-Men. And instead of choosing one style to go with, someone asked them, all right, you watched Home Alone, Breakfast Club, Nightmare on Elm Street, and X-Men. What would you like to go with in terms of style and tone? And their answer was, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely had some issues. I think that I was genuinely surprised that the Rotten Tomatoes score was so low and that the reviews were so harsh. I thought, I mean, I gave it a positive review. I thought overall it was perfectly serviceable. If you're looking for a superhero movie, I thought that yeah, that Breakfast Club kind of environment. It's actually Charlie Heaton, and
Oh,
he's
thank
on
you.
Stranger Things, and he's good there. He's good here, and yeah, overall the casting I thought was all good, and that the whole idea of them sort of facing their fears I thought was good, and I liked the relationship between Maisie Williams and Blue Hunt. I thought that was done well. I don't know. I mean, it was just I was entertained by it. It definitely the writing wasn't the best and had some problems, and particularly towards the end, I think, as it gets kind of messier and trying to kind of relate it to the greater X-Men world, and that feels so dated because that world is gone. It was harder, but I thought that it was kind of like a teenage version of Glass, which I thought Glass was okay. I didn't love it, but I thought it was okay.
I am in the severe minority on Glass, with the exception of the ending. I loved Glass. Like
Oh, really? Okay.
I think it's misunderstood, the ending is terrible. I made an entire video talking about how bad the ending was, but leading up to the ending, I did enjoy it. I think Shyamalan legitimately made an attempt on this one to not be, hey, what are you doing over there? Watch out for those plants over there. And, like, he was trying to wash himself of the stigma of being the happening After Earth and Last Airbender guy.
Mhm.
And it was admirable. It wasn't perfect, but it was admirable. It's funny you do say that, though, Rachel, about New Moons being like Glass, because Anya Taylor-Joy is in both of those movies. And
Yeah,
Anya
that's
Taylor-Joy, at least in New Mutants, she was just so unlikable. And I tend to like Anya Taylor-Joy in a lot of the movies she's in, but in this one, I was just like, when she is going through all the things that she's going through, I was just like, I have no sympathy for you. Like, you are just a terrible person. And I
yeah,
didn't
and
want
there
to feel
wasn't
like that, but that's just how it
yeah.
was.
And there wasn't like a huge payoff with that because I was expecting her to go like full on villain by the end of it with the way that she was going, and then that would have been kind of fun. But they didn't really go there, so it was just kind of like, but there wasn't enough redemption for her to be a good character. But so yeah, that was a little bit off, but
Plus,
I don't know.
she had really weird powers too. Like, she had a little dragon that she spoke to. She had a lightsaber. I'm sure it has a word, or sure it has a
Yeah,
title, but if it
right.
looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and quacks, then there it is.
Yeah,
And her big, like, mega power is that she sends people into the shadow realm. From Sonic the Hedgehog. She's genjutsuing people like every which way but loose, and it's just. I just looked at it like, I have no idea what to do with you. Like, there was potential in New Mutants. Like, I can't remember the character's name. I think it was Ricardo or something. But
oh yeah,
the guy who was on fire, I felt
right.
so sorry for him, and
Yeah,
it was just like they did nothing with him, and it was like, this movie is definitely a product of reshoots and rewrites and changing studios, and this just felt to me like a mercy killing. Like, it was just like, it's out, like, we wash our hands of it. Now let's, like, move on to something else, and
yeah,
hopefully now that Disney does own the rights to Fox, owns the rights to Fox, they can actually do something with the X-Men, because the original series, like from X-Men 2000 up through, like, let's just say Dark Phoenix, was wildly inconsistent. Like, high highs, low lows, and then there was, like, Origins Wolverine, which they brought it to a new level, which
yeah,
was the basement.
yeah. Yeah, Kevin Feige, in whose name we trust, right?
Do
Uh,
your magic, my friend. Do your magic.
that's right.
If
Uh,
you can
but
turn Iron Man into the most recognizable superhero in the world, then you can make gourmet dinner out of ramen noodles and salt.
you're right. If you were to, I mean, and maybe some people won't respect this, but if you were to ask me which one would I rather sit down and watch again a second time right now, the New Mutants or Tenet, I'm watching the New Mutants. I had way more fun with that movie than the loud, overbearing, incomprehensible film that was Tenet, that was so long. And at least the New Mutants was brief, and you were kind of in and out, and as opposed to so many superhero movies that are just so laborious and long. And I just thought that the more I think about Tenet, the more kind of irritated I am about it, to be honest. I just feel like it made almost every choice was made to challenge the audience member. And you can say that's a good thing, but at a certain point, the director has a responsibility to make the film somewhat accessible to the audience. They I feel like you can't have it where the characters are flat. The story is confusing. The dialogue is hard to understand. The score was so loud. I mean, to the point where I felt like I was hurting sometimes. Like it hurt my ears. It was so loud. And I mean, I ended up falling asleep and nodding off because I was not interested in what was happening at all. I wasn't interested in the characters.
How could you sleep through music that loud?
Oh, and like it was just it was not interesting to me. The characters weren't interesting. I didn't feel like he made an attempt to make interesting characters. And the more I think about it, the more disappointed I am. And I just feel like it was just sort of an exercise in excess, as opposed to trying to make something that will entertain people. And like this is I don't know. Like you can make challenging movies that are quizzes and puzzles and still have enough in there that's entertaining, that's appealing, and that people are going to enjoy. So I feel very frustrated about Tenet. I was very disappointed. I feel like it should have been way better, and I was just wanting it to be so good. And so to have this experience where I just walked out being like, darn.
It's deflating. And I used to be, an emphasis on used to be, I used to be a fan of the nostalgia critic. And one of the running jokes he would sometimes have is if like a movie is like trying to be challenging and it's really whiffing it, he would have like a little miniature of the director dance across the screen going like, ask me what it means, ask me what it means, ask me what it means. That was like with me and Nolan throughout the entirety of Tenet. It was like, there was a scene where they're like talking about possible parallel universes, and the entire time I was just seeing a little Nolan dancing across the screen like, ask me what it means, ask me what it means, ask me what it means.
Because there were whole scenes where I had no idea what was happening. I literally, at the end of the movie, I got out the Wikipedia and I was like, oh, that was what that whole art scene. I had no idea what was happening. Why are they in this art studio? What is happening? What is being, were things being stolen? I had no idea. And we don't want to get into spoilers, but basically I thought a lot about this review by Roger Ebert about this movie called Film Socialism, which is garbage. I hated it. And he says, this film is an affront. It is incoherent, maddening, deliberately opaque, and heedless of the ways in which people watch movies. All of that is part of the Godardian method, I am aware, but I feel a bargain of some sort must be struck. We enter the cinema with open minds and goodwill, expecting Godard to engage us in at least a vaguely penetrable way. But in Film Socialism, he expects us to do all the heavy lifting. Now, I am not saying the Tenet is on the level of Film Socialism, but I think that it starts down that journey. It starting down that road. And I think that he was asking us to do a lot of heavy lifting in that movie. And the fact that we couldn't understand the dialogue, that we couldn't understand the story, that he kept the characters at a distance from us, so we didn't get to know their backstories or who they are or what matters to them. So that's frustrating to me. And I just think that at some point, a bargain between the filmmaker and his ambitions and the audience and their entertainment has to be struck. And I don't think that that's the case here, at least for me.
Yeah, and the one thing that I noticed throughout watching all of Nolan's films for my series on my channel is that no matter how wild or out there Nolan's concepts get, there's always like an emotional through line to where no matter how like lost you get, you can always gravitate back towards that, like cling on to it like a safety rope and like lead yourself on to the next thing. Inception, my favorite Nolan film, is very challenging and complex, but the safety rope in that movie is Cobb was framed for something that he did not do, and if he completes this job, he can get home, have his name cleared, and spend the rest of his life with his kids. And that's the driving force of the movie. That's why why he's trying to plant the idea into Robert Fisher's head.
Yeah.
In Tenet, there is no emotional through line. It's just there's ideas of one, like everything involving Elizabeth Debicki and Kenneth Branagh, which, by the way, were two of my favorite parts of the movie. They went above and beyond, God bless their souls. But their whole abusive relationship, I was like, this could work if Nolan gave a damn about it, and I don't think he does.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that he just got too focused on making something different that he forgot to make it, that he ostracized the audience from the movie, that you couldn't even understand what the characters are saying. I mean, is that too much to ask? Am I being too much of a populist to ask to understand what the characters are saying in your movie?
Normie, you're a normie.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my gosh. And I mean, I feel like that it's just frustrating. I mean, because at least in Inception, it laid the clues out bit by bit by bit so that you understood what was happening. And then also you could understand what all the characters were saying, so you can understand the clues. And you had some emotion between Mal and Cobb, and you felt that that longing and that emotion. And there was nothing in here that in Tenet that gave me that kind of emotion. I thought that Kenneth Branagh's villain character was a total caricature. I thought that he was very silly, but the whole movie wasn't silly. And so it didn't really work for me. If he was trying to be a Bond movie, then the whole rest of the movie needs to be a Bond movie instead of this one character who's over the top and silly. And I don't know, it made me feel like, well, and I hear people saying how great it is, and I'm like, well, maybe I'm just stupid because I didn't get it, I didn't understand it, I didn't like it. It was loud, it was overbearing, it made me sleepy because I was bored. I just didn't like the movie.
Well, Rachel, this is just me, but you are the farthest thing from stupid, number one. And it's just, I said in my review for Interstellar that Interstellar was Nolan's most Nolan film. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes. It takes place in space, and there's a solid through line of time is different than where it is here on Earth.
Yeah.
Like, one day on Earth is 7 Earth, or one day on the other planet is 7 Earth years. But there's emotion in that movie, and when Matthew McConaughey returns to the ship and watches 7 years of his son becoming a man, and then him losing his child, and Murph becoming a grown woman and losing faith that McConaughey will ever return, and McConaughey doing that epic gif of him just breaking down and crying. Interstellar is complex, but bored down straight to the heart of the movie, it's about a man trying to do a job and then getting home to see his kids at the end of the day. That's where it begins and ends. Like,
That's right. I've always defended Interstellar because I feel like that relationship between the father and the daughter with Matthew McConaughey and Murphy, that was so strong and felt like it carried me through the film. And so I was able to almost the bookcase and sort of that whole thing kind of felt sort of whimsical to me. And so I was able to be fine with it. I didn't care about the science in that case. And because I cared so much about the characters. And that's where I think, especially having the fact that I couldn't understand what the characters were saying most of the time, it kept the characters at a distance. So I wasn't able to become emotionally invested in them. And so I don't know. I think that's the big difference to me between Interstellar and Tenet, is that Interstellar, I cared about the characters. I did not care about the characters here.
yeah, and I think in Tenet, Nolan tried to do something similar to what happened in Interstellar with Elizabeth Debicki's character having a son, but
Mhm.
half the time I forgot she even had a son when
Right.
they kept bringing up Max. I was like, who the heck is Max? And then I'm like, oh, that's her son. But
Yeah.
that in my brain was like, this character so does not matter that I just blanked him out of existence.
Yeah,
And
I
I
agree.
don't mean to crap on the movie. I think technically it's very well made. Hoyt van Hoytema did a
Mhm.
great job behind the camera. Nolan didn't use his normal cinematographer, Wally Pfister, but I think Hoytema did a really, really good job, especially in the opera scene, which is my favorite of the movie and is just fantastic. And Ludwig Göransson's score, though overbearing like 90% of the time, when it's not it's
Yeah.
actually not bad. And I
Mhm.
miss Hans Zimmer, don't get me wrong, but I think he still did a good job when it's not like in your face like this.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, in some ways, that's even more frustrating because you see all this skill and you're just like, why did you do this? Why did you make these choices that are so ostracizing for the audience? I mean, my friend Stanford, who does Talking Disney with me, he's described it as feeling like he was being tortured in the movie theater, which maybe is a little
Well,
hyperbole, but he was
I
miserable.
I
He
don't think
hated
I don't think I go quite that far, but I do understand his sentiment. And
just that, just
you know,
being, just that frustration of seeing this. I don't know. It just felt like this, you're being surrounded by sound and surrounded by images, and you can make no sense of it. And for that long is it's not pleasant. It's not a pleasant experience.
drives you mad.
Hmm.
And another thing, there's a common saying that I've heard in certain sections of film Twitter that people just say Quentin Tarantino is great, but he needs an editor. Christopher Nolan is great. He's one of my favorite directors working today, but he needs a screenwriter.
Yeah, he needs to get his brother back writing.
Yeah, because
That's
John knows what's up.
yeah. I've always been a Nolan fan. This is the first one of his movies I haven't liked, and
He's another
uh,
guy on my Mount Rushmore of current directors working today. And it pains me to talk so badly about his new movie, but I just got to be honest. You know, it is what it is.
and and if people like it, that's fine with me. You saw something that I did not, or you liked things that I can understand, and whatever. If you liked it, that's fine. Yeah, it didn't work for me. So,
There are
oh
people
well.
out there that loathe Interstellar and loathe Dunkirk, and I love both of those movies. They don't like them for very understandable reasons, but on the flip side of the coin, I love those movies for the reasons that I hate them. And it's
Mhm.
weird because now the shoe's on the other foot. I don't like a Nolan movie that a certain other group of people like for the
Mm.
reasons that they like it. So it's like it
Yeah.
it's like I'm going through a palindrome myself.
Well, should we? How much longer? How much time do you have? How much longer should we go? We've been about. Do you want to do a couple questions
Uh,
or?
yeah, let's go ahead and do it.
So here's this. I have another this little tag, but here's a question: how often do you think you watch a movie a week? Like, how many movies do you watch in a week? do you think?
It's definitely several. Like I know for you, it's your job, but for me, it's either for the channel or just in general. Like watching movies like for pleasure has just like gone way down on the priorities list. Like I reserve a lot of TV shows for that now. Like I'm watching Top Gear UK on Amazon Prime, not because I intend to review it or anything, but because I love Top Gear and it's like a nice distraction. So
Yeah.
I think for me, watching like movies per week, I think I'd have to go with like 5 or 6, give or take. And that's like a guesstimate.
Yeah, I mean, I counted just on the movies that I had reviewed. Well, like last week, I watched all 5 Parent Trap movies for one podcast.
There are 5.
5 Parent Trap movies, and that's going to be this upcoming week on Hallmarkies podcast.
How many
Uh,
times can they trap parents? Like
Parent Trap
it
3.
stops becoming funny at one point, and it turns into a Liam Neeson movie. Like he's gonna burst in there, you're like, I don't know who you are, and I don't know what you want, but I have a unique set of skills.
Yeah, I mean, I watched at least just last week. I watched at least um, at least 12 movies.
Okay.
At least. But there was one day I watched all 5 Parent Trap movies. And so
Five of
on
them. Five of
Wednesday,
them, folks.
Hallmarkies podcast, me and Marissa Serafini, you got to check it out. It was pretty fun. We talked about all 5 because in Parent Trap 3 and Parent Trap 4, it's triplets that get involved in the shenanigans. But so
The more you know, that's all I'm thinking. The more you know.
So what movie genre are you particularly fond of?
Oh, well, I think I know the answer to this question for you, rom-coms. But I think for me, it would have to go like action movies. Like if you like, I understand that a lot of there are some action movies that are downright terrible, but I still love them anyway. And they kind of similar to rom-coms. They adhere to a bit of a formula, but the formula has been battle and time tested, so I can't really fault them for that. Like I'm just hook, line, sinker for it.
Yeah, I think the action movies can be fun. Yeah, romantic comedies for me. Also, holiday films. You gotta.
That was going to be my other choice.
Yeah, that's right.
Since Hallmark is making 1,285 Christmas movies this year,
I better go.
I'll know why you aren't really so available this coming December.
That's right. So it's asking what is the last movie that you watched, the most recent movie you watched?
That would be Midnight Cowboy for me.
For me, it would be the new Mulan. That would be the last one that I watched.
I've not heard good things.
It's not the best. I didn't hate it, but I'm not going to give it a positive review. It made weird choices. It's very pretty. So, yeah, it wasn't. It was.
Read her review.
Yeah, it's my review. I'll be writing it today. It made weird choices, in my opinion. But what are you gonna do? Okay. So, what was the last movie that you watched and hated?
I think I'd have to go with Artemis Fowl on Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a recent example, and it's been kicked nearly to death. But I mean, God, that movie was just a whole bundle of why. And it's funny because I just watched Kenneth Branagh and Tenet, and the entire time I was like, this guy directed Artemis Fowl earlier this year. And he's going to be in Death on the Nile later this year. So for a guy who looks like he's in his 50s, like he's still going strong, directing and acting and producing, and just it's admirable. But Artemis Fowl was just trash.
Yeah, the Desperados, I wanted to die. I hated it so much. I watched Tenet 50 times over rather than watch Desperados again. It was so bad. And I don't know what is happening to Anna Camp's career, but she needs an agent terribly. I was pretty mean to her in my review, Desperados. Um,
What was her name?
Anna Camp. She was on she was in Pitch Perfect,
Huh.
um, and she can be a good actress, but she was really bad in the what's it called? I can't think of the name all of a sudden. Lovebirds. She was really bad in that. It was an okay movie, but she was really bad in this Desperados, and she can be. I love the first Pitch Perfect movie. It's one of my favorite modern comedies, but yeah, she needs some help. Let me find it. What did I? Yeah, it was a gross movie. It wasn't funny. It wasn't romantic at all. But so I would definitely not recommend it. Let me find it. My writing. I said here that I said in my review. I said, I'm not kidding. I hated every single minute of this supposed romantic comedy. I hated all the jokes. I hated the shrill, obnoxious women. I hated how what was supposed to be empowering is actually demeaning. This movie even made me hate dolphins. It was brutal to get through. And all I can think to say is, Anna Camp, fire your agent. After this and your cringy appearance in The Lovebirds, you have had a terrible summer of 2020, even outside of quarantine. How many actors can say that?
Definitely sounds like an alleged comedy, in the words of Roger Ebert.
Yeah. Oh, good. So Ren has said, he says, Rachel, you and I disagree like every time a Disney live action remake comes out, but I think we're finally on the same page with Mulan. Yeah, the thing is, I just don't understand why they decided to give her superpowers to make her, it's a super chi that makes her.
They give her superpowers, you said.
Yeah, they make her the chosen one. And I'm just like, why? That was the whole thing that made her a strong character, is that she was she was strong, and she was an ordinary girl that saved China, and that she didn't need superpowers. It was so stupid. I don't know why they did that. And there's this like witch that kind of like follows her around, and
Of course, there's a witch, and I'm old enough to. Let me back up a second. I have not seen the original Mulan in a very long time, but I'm old enough to remember when in that movie, meant for kids, by the way, she worked her butt off to try and be somewhat acceptable on that battlefield,
yeah.
like through montages and etc. And she had no superpowers. And in this one, it's like she's like the dragon warrior from Kung Fu Panda.
They don't
Except
even have
that
her change her voice. She's just like so confident from the beginning that what she can do, and it's like she does not look like a man at all, and she doesn't even try to like change her voice at all. And I would think that if somebody was, especially in that day and age, was pretending to be a man, you would change your voice, and so I don't know. I was just like, what? Why did they decide to go this way? And you'll see in my review, but I'm going to be comparing it to a very strange comparison, but the movie Scoob, where they also went the superhero route for no reason at all. Like, why are you turning them into superheroes and chosen people? And what?
It's one of those things where it's like the original stuff was perfectly good as it is. Like, you don't need to add these bells and whistles to it. I have not seen Scoop, but from all the clips I have seen, it's just like they did the thing that I was afraid that they were going to do. They modernized it, and from all the clips, I just was like, why did they do that? And just from you talking about the live action Mulan, I don't want to see it, because it's just like it in 1990 freaking 8, they got the formula correct, of like the hero's journey, or I guess that's what we're calling it. And in this, like, from what you've been telling me, she's she's essentially Neo from the Matrix, and it's like that's not interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, and it is a beautiful movie and it has some kick butt moments and some good action scenes. I get all that. But the problem with these live action remakes is that you always have something better to look back on and be like, well, it's not as good as that. And maybe you shouldn't. But I would still until they make one that's legitimately better, like Peach Dragon, you are going to say that. And at least I felt like with something like Mary Poppins Returns, they had new music and it was a new story, and so I appreciated it on that level. But this was just it's just so frustrating because it felt like it had all of these pieces and they were trying to do something different, but then every change they made was inferior and made the story worse. So it's just like, Ren, he says, what made Mulan's victory so meaningful was that she was weaker than the others. She had to fight harder. She is so much more to overcome. Nothing about her showed any physical prowess. She was anything. And here's the thing that brings up quite a difference in the animated film. There's a really important sequence where she cuts her hair and she puts on the armor, and she's deciding what she wants to be. Their equivalent to that in this movie is for her hair, long hair, to come out of its bun mid-fight, and her hair is flying all over the place. And I'm like, that's not nearly as good. What are you kidding me? In one, she's making a distinct action to cut her hair to change and be this new person. And the other, she's like a magic warrior with hair that can fly over her face and she can still see in order to battle. And she looks like she's at a Victoria's Secret photo shoot. Why is her hair all over the place? She's a warrior. She would want to have her hair up. And it might seem like a nitpick, but it's like it's just so much less powerful than her deciding to cut her hair and put on this armor. And I don't know, frustrating. And so, yeah.
It just sounds like they tried to make an attempt to do Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and they just completely whiffed it.
I mean, I don't know if I would say completely. I'm actually not a big fan of. That's one of my unpopular opinions, is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. But I think that there was that attempt to do the Wuxia martial arts thing, which I'm not the biggest fan of, I have to say. I reviewed for Blind Spot. I did The House of Flying Daggers, and I didn't love that movie. So maybe it's just not my genre. But they were trying visually at least to capture Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, to capture the characters can walk on the wall, the characters can do things like that, and so, I don't know. Like, it did look nice in that regard, but Ren says, I think it's a disservice to every little girl who will have this as their first Mulan, seeing themselves on screen, and they can't relate because they're not the chosen one.
Like, thank God for Disney Plus, like, actually having the originals on there, or even better, buying the physical media. Like, I have some of the original Disney clamshell VHSs. I can send them to anyone who wants it.
Yeah, and people think I just hate all of the Disney remakes, and part of it is because I just like animation better. I am an animation fan. I like animation. It's not an upgrade to me to turn something from animation to live action. In fact, it's usually downgrade. And so that alone is going to make me biased because I just like animation better. But I loved Mary Poppins Returns. So there are some that can do it right for me and can bring enough heart. And I love Pete's Dragon, and I really enjoyed Cinderella. So I try to have an open mind to them, but when you see them make these choices, it's just so frustrating.
Yeah, and
so
what I love.
I think we lost.
Yeah, you're freeze framed right now.
There we go. Sorry about that. They were
I
so
was
mad
going,
about my rant, they cut me off.
Disney must be hacking in, like delete, 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 delete. No, but there are like there are several of the live action remakes that I walked out of at least enjoying. Like I loved the Jungle Book from Jon Favreau, the Cinderella one from Kenneth Branagh. I loved, and most people thought it was just kind of it was okay. And like you said, Pete's Dragon is the best out of all of them. What do they all have in common? They did things differently. They kept the bare bones of the originals, but then just filled in the blanks from there with their own ideas. Then there's Beauty and the Beast, who did the exact same thing, except with Dan Stevens and Emma Watson. God bless their souls. They can't sing their way out of a paper bag.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's that abomination of a Lion King.
The changes they did make in Beauty and the Beast were infuriating and terrible, in my opinion, at least. But yeah,
LeFou is gay. You wouldn't be able to know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and The Lion King was just
No. That
did I waste my time? And they tried this Mulan, but the differences they made were very bad to the story. They weren't good. So
plus this is a bit of a mixed one, but they removed one of the best songs in the movie, Be Prepared. And I was angry that they removed it, but at the same time, I don't think I want to hear Chiwetel Ejiofor sing. So I have very mixed feelings.
Well, he just like singed it. It was so weird. Anyway, yeah, so that's frustrating. Let's do a couple more before we go.
Is there a happier question?
Yeah. Okay. What is your most favorite movie of all time?
Oh wow. Rachel, you go first.
My most favorite movie of all time is Your Name. I love Your Name. I just love the story. I love that it's funny. I love that it's emotional. I love the music. I love the animation. It is absolutely beautiful. And yeah, so it's my favorite. Every time I watch it, I get something new out of it. And so yeah. And then I also love Up from Pixar. I know a lot of people don't like it as much as I do, but I don't care. I really love it.
That's weird because I've always loved that movie.
Yeah, I love it. I love The Little Mermaid. My top 10, Your Name, Up, The Little Mermaid, Jurassic Park, The Wizard of Oz, Spirited Away, You've Got Mail, Back to the Future, Breakfast at Tiffany's, and Star Wars. That's my top 10.
I don't have my top 10 set in stone, but I know that my number one is Jurassic Park, followed very closely by Schindler's List, which I watched for the first time for the AFI project, and I was just completely like spent. Like I watched it, and when it was over, it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I was just like, I've just been through an odyssey.
Yeah. I mean, basically, Spielberg 1993 is your favorite movie.
Pretty much, yeah. It was like, I don't know if I should be very sad or very happy at knowing that I will never do something as epic as what Spielberg did in 1993.
Yeah.
Directing two of the greatest movies of all time.
Yeah. Those are very, very, very good movies. So I'm with you there on those. So you have what you consider a guilty pleasure movie? And this is not necessarily, you don't actually feel guilt, but it's just a movie that is not like a great movie, but you still enjoy it.
Okay. I think mine would have to be Space Jam. Like I totally understand it's a glorified Nike commercial, and Michael Jordan, God bless his soul, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, can't act. But it's a movie. As a Looney Tunes fan, I absolutely loved it. It's got some pretty good songs in there. One of them is from R. Kelly, which that's not a good, not exactly timely, but
it works in the movie.
Yes, it does. Yeah. And there's a remake of Fly Like an Eagle, which is from I believe the Eagles.
Oh yeah.
redone by Seal, which I listen to off and on sometimes, and it's a great song, especially when Michael's doing like the training montage, and it's like you actually get to see him play basketball, and it's like good stuff right here. And then of course Bill Murray's in there, and he's always funny, and Wayne Knight from Jurassic Park and Seinfeld is in there, and he's really good. And the animation still holds up, largely speaking, to this day. So I get why people don't like it, because there are people that are like, oh, it's just a Nike commercial they stretched to feature length. But to me, it's like such a product of the 90s that whenever I'm like, I wonder what the 90s were like, put on Space Jam and figure it out from there.
Yeah, I think that was a fun one.
Plus, it's the greatest movie starring a basketball player of all time, because Steel, no. Kazam, no. And I just hope that the one LeBron does is even close to being as enjoyable as the original, though I don't think it will.
Well, Bill Murray, he's nice in it too. Yeah, that one's a fun one. For me, I do like a kind of a silly shark movie on occasion. Like, I enjoyed 47 Meters Down. I thought it was fun. The second one was too much even for me to enjoy. I get the flaws that people have with it, but I had a genuinely good time with 47 Meters Down, with The Shallows, with sort of dopey shark movies. I enjoy. I even watched one year for Christmas. I watched Santa Jaws. It was
I had no idea that was even a thing.
It was actually kind of clever. I mean, it knows what it is. It knows it's super, super campy. But basically, like, the story is that this kid makes a drawing of Santa Jaws, and his family is like so horrible that he kind of wishes his drawing, his comic book, into life, and all of a sudden Santa Jaws is there in the water and like terrorizing everyone. It's completely ridiculous, but I actually had kind of fun with it. So I think that's in the spirit of guilty pleasure. A lot of what I watched during the holidays would probably be considered guilty pleasures by most people, but I just really enjoy it. And it's nice when you can have something that's a little bit different from the rom-coms during the holidays.
When it comes to shark movies, there's two. There's Jaws and The Shallows, and the rest are just, they exist.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, none of them will ever equal Jaws, but I do like a campy, kind of silly shark movie. I really enjoyed Crawl last year, the crocodile movie, or Gator. I get gators and crocodiles mixed up, but anyway.
Just a regional thing you wouldn't understand.
Movie. I thought that was really fun. I enjoyed that. I like a creature scares movie that's I like the Anaconda. I think that one's fun. Even though it's completely ridiculous.
Speaking of Jon Voight,
yeah,
and Ice Cube.
So I can like that kind of movie. So yeah, I also a lot of times I'll answer to this question, The Beautician and the Beast, which is Fran Drescher movie, and I love Fran. It's kind of like basically a full length film of The Nanny, which is a show I love. So
we essentially have a whole podcast dedicated to the thing that Fran Drescher is primarily known for.
Yeah, I love Fran.
You are a fan.
I am. All right, let's do one more. And so let's do let's see here. What's a movie that made you cry?
Les Miserables from 2012. Again, I think I said it when we did the Hoopla episode of the Hidden Gems, when I talked about the 25th anniversary concert. I get why people wouldn't like Les Mis, but I absolutely love it, especially the 2012 version and the ending. Wow, that took me out. And the most recent movie from 2018, Won't You Be My Neighbor? Yeah, that's the one. Because I get that one confused with the Tom Hanks one from last year.
The documentary.
Like, and the part where people say like, "Oh, Fred Rogers, he's a bad person because he said that everyone was special." I'm like, and I cry at that part because Fred Rogers was a pure soul. Like he believed in everybody, like regardless of if they were bad to him or anything like that. He was a genuinely good person who said one of his mantras was, "I love you. I love you for just who you are." I may be butchering that, but I'm sure you all understand what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, that documentary, forget it. I am the thing they asked me what if someone asked me what movies do I cry, I have an easier time answering what movies don't I cry because I am a public waterworks, I am a faucet, I cry at everything. I mean looking at uh my top 10, most of them I cry in I just get really emotional at the movies. But one movie people might not expect that always makes me just like weep and that people wouldn't think of as being a tearjerker is honestly Wonder Woman. The ending of Wonder Woman, spoiler alert, with
To
Steve.
the five of you who haven't seen it yet.
With the ending with Steve is so emotional to me. And I know a lot of people hate the ending of that movie, but and then her as this person who's been so positive and optimistic through the whole movie. And when she comes to realize that it was human beings who started this war, that it wasn't Ares' fault, I think that is such a moving moment that she has to come to terms with how horrible we are to each other. And even just talking about it, I think it's so moving. And I just, every time I watch that movie, I just bawl. And then what happens with Steve, it's so sad to me. And that's why I'm like nervous about the new one, because I'm like, he's coming back and I really don't want anything that was so special to me and it meant so much to me. I don't want anything to hurt that sacrifice in my eyes, to lower it or minimize it in any way. And I trust Patty Jenkins; she would never do that. So,
Yeah, that out of all of the things of Wonder Woman 1984, that's the one thing that I'm just like, how is he even here? Like, he should have died, like, a very painful death on that
there's
plane.
some kind of wishing machine that or wishing thing that she wishes him back. At least that's what I feel like from the trailer. But yeah, I mean, it just was such an emotional, powerful thing that I agree with you. That's what I'm the most nervous about. But I'm still excited for the movie, of course. But I love Wonder Woman. I think it is such a good movie.
Yeah, here's to hoping.
But any Pixar movie will get me crying. I think especially in Inside Out when she goes home and she tells her parents that she says, "I miss home." Oh, forget it. I'm gone. I lost it by then. So Ren says here, last movie I cried was my number 2 movie of the year thus far, Digimon Last Evolution Kizuma. Won't get into why in case you both want to see it. I'll just say
Digimon Digital Monsters, Digimon Digital Monsters.
it was extremely cathartic, not only for the movie itself, but because of when I watched it. So that's awesome. I will have to see that. I haven't seen it. I did watch the My Hero Academia, Heroes Rising, which is, I think, one of the most underrated movies of the year. I think if people are open to anime, I think it's kind of an end game type movie. It's really good and very, very epic. The last 20 minutes are. So I highly recommend that one. But yeah, that's always a good feeling when you kind of have that release of a really good emotional movie. So, all right. Well, very good. So thanks so much for doing this. This was always so much fun to do. And look forward to seeing comments, especially if you have things to say about Mulan or Tenet or all the things that we talked about. Put in the comment section. And thanks to Ren for watching. And he says that he saw My Hero Academia, so he agrees. Yes. So thank you so much for your comments, Ren, and thanks for everybody for watching. And Ryan, thank you. And why don't you tell people where they can find you and your channel?
So you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at RyanCam20. And then, of course, there's the channel, RyanCam Movie Reviews. Tomorrow, which is a Sunday, I will be dropping my official review for Tenet. It was a movie that I thought long and hard about because even though I saw it on Monday, I said to myself, I'm going to wait because I don't want to post anything just shooting from the hip. And so I'm very proud of the work that I've done, and that's going to go up at noon Eastern tomorrow. And then now that all the Nolan movies are out of the way on my channel, I'm going to go straight back into the AFI project. Going to be talking about all the movies that I talked about earlier: Best Years of Our Lives, Treasures of Sierra Madre, Sound of Music, King Kong, and just a ton of others. And it's going to be a great time. And I just wanted to thank Rachel because the first episode of Movie Nerds Club dropped today, and it's one of the best performing videos I've had in a very long time. It's been a pleasure working with Ren Geekness, who has been very participatory in this stream. Also Larry from LC Screen Talk, who I've been a big fan of for a while now. Rachel, you, obviously. Alyssa from Mainly Movies, which admittedly I haven't watched a ton of her videos, but I will be getting on top of that. So it's just been a great time. Like when I started, I had no idea that I would be doing actual collabos with people. Like it was like a far off dream for me, but now I'm actually doing it. It's like I'm pinching myself just to make sure I'm awake for the ride, but I am, and it's wonderful. But I've gone on too long, so
Yeah.
Rachel.
Yes, I should have mentioned that earlier, but everybody, please check out the Movie Nerds Club. This is something we're doing every month, and it's really fun. I'm really looking forward to it every month. And so this is our first one. We had to go with Disney, just for Disney animation. So fun. And so check that out. And yeah, you can find me, Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. And my Mulan review will be on rotoscopers.com, where I've been writing for them for about 5 years. So check out over there. When that is done, I'm going to finish it up later this afternoon. So it should be fun. But thanks so much, everybody. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.